Hey, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. I think I'm live. One never really knows. Are we really alive, or is this all just an illusion? Is it all just a great cosmic game? Yeah, I'm probably wasting time now. So, hey, everybody, welcome to the Den. Doing another live stream. Now, I was going for kind of a bi-weekly thing, but I actually pulled together a lot of stuff to sort of talk about. And I figured, well, I mean, if I got all this stuff, I might as well chat. So first and foremost, news-wise, stuff that came up this week. He-Man movie teaser poster pops up for a movie that is going to come out like in June of 2026. There's not a lot you can glean from this. The sword looks like the sword. That's pretty cool. The dude holding the sword appears to be, running around half naked. So that sounds like He-Man. So who knows? It might be good. It'd be nice to have just a fun sort of fantasy sci-fi thing. Now, I did hear something rumor-wise of it being set on planet Earth again, at least partially. I kind of get it. The whole, the folks making most of these movies, they don't really like them. They don't really get them. At least the IP that's underneath it. So I could see where they'd say, yeah, who cares about some make-believe land called Eternia? We need to nail it in more to like the reality that people know. So that's cool, I guess. It's fine. It is what it is. We also lost a few people in the last week. Michelle Trachtenberg, who obviously a lot of people know her from Buffy. I watched a couple seasons of Buffy and then kind of fell out of it. So I'd never seen her on that. But I do remember, because of the age my daughter was, seeing her in that movie, Ice Princess, and thinking, yeah, she's really, good actress. And I know it seems like she went through a lot of stuff. Well, I mean, child actress, and we kind of know very sadly what that means these days. So, a very sad story and a sad ending. She was just like way too young. And of course, Gene Hackman, we'll talk about a couple of his movies later in the stream that I caught this week. They're not like among his finest work ever, but I think show the professionalism of the guy, the consistency of the guy. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then, of course, David Johansen. This little image here, you see him as the Ghost of Christmas Past in Scrooge, great movie, and he was very good in it. Also, New York Dolls, so kind of at the beginning of the punk movement, and I guess the glam movement when you get into it. And then Buster Poindexter later on. So that's a bummer too, losing some good people. Other things that came up, the Andor trailer. Now, I'm not like a Disney Star Wars guy. But just looking at the trailer, the imagery looked pretty cool, right? I go, yeah, okay, that looks like it might be a good show. The music in the trailer was freaking horrible. Just like, it was like a splash of cold water. Dude singing reminded me of Chris Pratt on Parks and Rec, playing Andy Dwyer when he would be singing. Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent to me of the theme for Star Trek Enterprise. And I know it's got its fans out there, but for me, that was the fastest skip when I had that streaming in the world. That thing just didn't work for me. It didn't feel like Star Trek, And I get it. We're going for something different. And this is Star Trek set a lot earlier, set maybe closer to our own time period. So we're going for something there. But yeah, I didn't care for it. There's been a few of those. I know that Gladiator preview, a lot of people hated the music in it. I think the Superman trailer was actually helped a little bit by the music. I know a lot of people would have rather had something more like an orchestra, but the Superman trailer I watched twice. The first time I glanced at it, I didn't have the sound on. And I remember thinking, man, this thing looks like a mess. This thing just looks like way too much crap that they're trying to cram into this movie. And I have a feeling it's going to be way too much crap that they're trying to cram into that movie. But when I watched it with the music, with the sound, it kind of, I was like, okay, it at least had a little bit of an emotional impact on me. Still probably don't want to see the movie, but it was definitely a little bit better. Something, yeah, like, I don't know, man. There's sort of an art to making a good preview, a good trailer. And like so many arts in Hollywood, I'm not so sure that it hasn't a little bit disappeared. I mean, think of all the really kind of mediocre movies that had freaking great trailers back in the day. And nowadays, I don't know, it's almost like the trailers, I go, eh. And maybe the movie's actually really good, but the trailers are like, nah, it's not worth it. Well, anyway. Oh yeah, John Lithgow being cast as Dumbledore. Again, I'm not like a big Harry Potter guy, and I haven't read the books. My wife and my daughter have. They love them. But I saw the movies, primarily because I have a wife and a daughter who wanted to see them. And I thought movies were pretty darn entertaining. I liked them for the most part. But so I'm not a big Harry Potter guy. I can't speak to the rightness of the casting based on the books and the character and all that stuff. But I will say, I saw that and I thought, that actually sounds pretty good. I think Lithgow could probably do it. And I run hot and cold on Lithgow. Sometimes it's a little too overacty for me, like on Third Rock from the Sun. That just, yeah, it was a little bit too much for me. But I've seen him in other stuff, and I think he could probably do that. So that might be a good sign for the Harry Potter TV series. But they've already talked about some other things that I know people were not real thrilled about. So we'll see. Jury's going to be out on that one. And man, I don't know. It's like, I don't think the entertainment industry at this point has just any credit with audiences. They have messed around way too much. And people, I think, are almost reactionary at this point with the stuff that they make, and it's like, you almost go into the assumption, oh, they're going to ruin it. They're going to ruin it. Like when we're going to make a Goonies. You go, oh God, don't make a Goonies thing. Oh, we're going to do, oh, don't touch that. My daughter, even, she's like kind of right the cusp between millennial and Gen Z, and she's already seen him do like a bad live action version of Kim Possible, of Avatar. I mean, Last Airbender. So she's like that too, kind of just, don't do that. I'm like, she's in her 20s. I'm in my 50s. She's in her 20s. And we're both like, oh, please, stop adapting anything. You can't do it. You don't know what you're doing. You're not good at this. Make bad originals, but see, that's, I think, kind of the point, right? If they do originals, they're probably going to be just as bad and nobody will know what they are. So they won't even bother going to see them. But if they make a bad version of something people love, that'll get some people in the door. It's really sad. Rob Liefeld saying it's time to ditch Feige. I think he's probably right. I talked about that a little bit in the last live stream I did, of just me going, what are they doing with the Marvel movies? I don't know how much impact that dude really had on the on the initial success. And based on what they've been doing since the whole in-game end of all that stuff, I don't know. But then we also got like somebody at Marvel Comics saying, yeah, the purpose of Marvel Comics now is to develop new ideas as fodder for movies and animation. So if you're looking at this stuff as fodder, that's animal feed, that's cheap crap to keep animals alive that you're going to slaughter. If you're looking at what you're making as fodder, how good do you think that stuff is going to be? Honestly. I mean, go back in time to Batman, go back in time to Superman. And while those guys were trying to get like a really good, comic strip going, they wanted to break into that business. So it wasn't necessarily all a matter of, my art. I have a vision for Batman and I'm going, it wasn't necessarily that, but they wanted to make a really good product so they could get a gig that was going to last a while, like a lot of other guys who made comic strips at the time, who did pretty darn well. I mean, comic books are notorious for just treating creators like crap. But the comic strips, I mean, if you could get a big comic strip going, I think you could make, a pretty decent living. So, yeah, that's something you want to try to do. Kirby and Stan Lee were definitely like, let's make something awesome here. Because they'd worked in comic books, so they know you could get treated like crap. And obviously, a lot of people felt like maybe Stan was treating them like crap. But point remains, they weren't just like, well, let's spit some crap out and see if some idiots will buy it. Right? They were trying to do something cool. And that's why that stuff has lasted so long. And there's a lot of characters that have been made over the years that were just designed to like leech off of more popular characters. And sometimes it would maybe work, but mostly they're pretty forgettable and they kind of fade into, in the memory of people. So when you're saying straight out, we're just making fodder for movies and animation, then you're probably going to make crap that's not going to do that well in movies or animation. Like, God forbid, why don't you just make something great? I'm sure a lot of the people working at Marvel and DC right now, maybe they're not making stuff that's interesting to me, but I'm sure a lot of them are trying to make something good, something they think is good. Maybe not all of them. There could be a few that are just kind of mercenary. Like, let's just knock some stuff out there. Oh, I see a message from Chuck Barchuk. Love your content. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I do my best to just get up here and blather and hope the sentences, actually make sense when they come out of my mouth. But anyway, so just seeing that comment, I'm going like, I don't see success in your future. Like, you need to be wanting to make something that's just awesome. That's just rad. That people are going to just love. And that's what's going to work when it finds its way onto the silver screen, into a cartoon, into some other medium. There's got to be some amount of passion. I mean, it's still about making a buck at some point too. No doubt about it. I mean, let's be honest. The creators who don't really care about making a buck, it's all my artistic vision, they don't always necessarily do that well either. I mean, there's got to be like a balance. Charles Schultz did Peanuts, and he wasn't, averse to making some money off of that in merchandising, in commercials and things like that. Because as he said, hey, I got a mortgage, I got kids to put through college, I need to have a retirement at some point. He was a businessman, but he loved the Peanuts. He believed in what he was doing, and that's why when it was over, it was over. I'm not handing it off to somebody else. It's my baby, You got to have that balance in there of doing both those things. And just trying to make something that like people are going to go, oh my God, that's so cool. Think of like Luke Cage, Power Man. Dude, those are rad. Just the covers alone are rad. That's what works. Just like, let's produce some corporate slop and put it on a piece of paper. That is not going to get you where you want to go. Oh, yeah. So the other big news for me this week, which dropped yesterday, potato cakes are back at Arby's. Therefore, Arby's is no longer dead to me. I've made that comment a few times on Twitter. We got some Arby's today. I am digesting it as we speak. And it occurred to me, we hadn't gone to Arby's in 5 years, because I'm pretty sure the last time my wife and I went was during all the COVID lockdown stuff. Drove to the drive-thru, pulled in, placed our order, which usually get the same thing, which is beef and cheddar, Jamocha shake, order of potato cakes. And they go, oh, we don't have potato cakes. And we're like, oh, all right. They must be out of them, which is kind of weird. But, well, okay, it's all the weird stuff going on in COVID. I guess you could be out of it. Okay, curly fries, whatever. And they asked us to pull around to the parking lot. So we pull around. We're waiting. Manager comes out with the bags. And, we're chatting with her. I said, oh, yeah, it was crazy. You guys were out of potato cakes. She goes, oh, no. We don't serve them anymore. Well, what? And we almost were like, did we not understand her well? Yeah, she goes, yeah, they've gotten rid of potato cakes. And we're like, dude, that's like one of the main things we come here for. She goes, oh, it's our top seller. It is our top seller. And they've gotten rid of potato cakes. She goes, so they can add another version of French fries, which are our bottom seller. People come here, they want potato cakes or curly fries. But now we're going to have curly fries and 2 versions of French fries that people don't really want. Ingenious. And I was like, dude, I'm done with Arby's, because that's what I go to Arby's for. Beef and cheddar, potato cakes, Jamocha shake. I can't get that anywhere else. That's what I want when I go to Arby's. So that was like 5 years ago. So we got stuff, and like I probably ate too many potato cakes. So if at some point my eyes kind of go back in my head and I fall over, that's probably why. Yeah, Chuck. I mean, Arby's, it's like, and it's crazy too. Like now you look at their menu and like roast beef is like at the bottom. Okay. And you're going, Arby's name is literally RB, roast beef, Arby's. That's where the name comes from. It used to be the fast food place that your dad wanted to go and get some roast beef. And of course, as kids, you're like, oh, go to McDonald's and get a Happy Meal. Now we're going to Arby's. But then, one day you grow up and you go, oh, wow, Arby's is actually really rad. They got some great stuff. And now it's like they just want to sort of be knockoff Carl's Jr. or something. I don't know, man. But they got the potato cakes back. So Arby's is no longer dead to me, which is nice. It opens up one more avenue of unhealthy food that I can eat for lunch. So I'm cool with that. So new releases, new campaigns that are out there. This one popped up, the Abbott and Costello Horror Collection, 4K apparently, because obviously you need Abbott and Costello in 4K, but they're going to do pre-orders in a few months apparently, release in summer, early fall from KL Studio Classics. I've never gotten anything from them, so I don't know about quality and all that, but you got Hold That Ghost from 1941. Of course, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, 1948, one of my favorites. Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer Boris Karloff, 1949. Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, 1951. Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1953. And Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, 1955. So if you're into that stuff, pretty cool collection, especially if you want it in 4K. I have the Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in a set that was like all the Frankenstein movies. So I don't really need that one. Plus, it shows up on Svengoolie all the time, which I always dig. But yeah, pretty cool though. Pretty cool set. They dropped some samples from the Atlantean issue 2. Really great. It's Kull, but very much in the style of the old Savage sort of Conan sort of books. They're in black and white. It's going to launch on Fund My Comic on March 3rd. I'm definitely going to order that one. No doubt about it. Super 7 is doing Zartan in the Cold Slither persona from the Cobra rock band, which is just completely cool. If I had, Elon Musk money, so that little things like this didn't matter at all, I would probably have about, 50 Super 7 figures floating around the house. I do have a few, but at $20, as nicely as they are designed and all that, at $20, I'm always a little bit like, I don't know if I want to get this one or not, but I think I'm going to get this one, if nothing else, just because it's really cool that they made it. Pre-order April 3rd. It's going to go again for $20 like usual. But there's also a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive that Hasbro Pulse has been showing, which is like the whole Cold Slither band. Check out the guitars, check out the drum set. Really cool. Now, obviously, going to be a higher price point on those. But, you got to admit, that's really cool, and they did a great job designing it. You know what they should do now? Same format is at a minimum, do the Misfits from Jim and the Hologram. Because it's the same style. It's the same cartoon house, basically. Jim and the Hologram's fine to do those. I don't know how much they'd sell, but I don't know, something about it would be cool to have the Misfits. Their songs are bitter. Vampire Hunter D 40th anniversary, back in theaters April 9th, 10th, and 13th. You have to hunt around to see if it's showing anywhere near you. This is one of the anime I remember getting from the video store that I worked at way back when. I primarily remember Project A-ko. I can remember watching that going, this feels like it wants to be a lot dirtier. And it turns out it was going to be a lot dirtier initially. But Project A-ko, I remember Gunbuster, which my wife was like, you got to watch Gunbuster. And it was cool. I remember Vampire Hunter D. I was thinking there was one other one that we did, like Kimagura Orange Road, I think was kind of fun. Anyways, so Vampire Hunter D, very cool, and it's going to be in theaters. So that ought to be awesome on like the big screen. So if you're a big fan of that, you want to check that out. Also, kind of blast from the past. Some images have shown up of Terminator 2D, No Fate. It's a Terminator side-scroller. You can pre-order on the Reef Direct online store. Apparently it's coming out September 5th. I got a few images from it. So there's the side-scroller aspect of it. It looks like a game I could have played in an arcade back in the, late 80s, early 90s. Well, I guess based on when Terminator 2 came out, it would probably be early 90s. Looks really, really, really cool. There's like the semi going down, and like on this one, you're on the bike with John and shooting at this thing. Oh, there we go. I guess I grabbed one of those too. You see the helicopter. Hasta la vista, baby. There's like one of the big boss fights. Terminator 2D, No Fate. Now, PC format is among many others. So I could technically get this, and there's a little bit of a temptation, but I probably wouldn't end up playing it, and I don't know. But at any rate, it's like I have limited time at this point in life, but really, really cool looking, and the graphics look fantastic. They put a lot of work into this. So something to check out if you're into that stuff. Loyal Subjects doing a mask toy line. Pre-order on Big Bad Toy Store July 1st. Distribution is supposed to be September 2nd, first wave. And these are the prices, apparently. The Condor, $29.99. Thunderhawk, $49.99. Switchblade, $74.99. Rhino, $99.99. You get the vehicle, you get the figure. The figures apparently have better articulation, so they're a bit of an upgrade from the originals, but they are obviously based very much on the originals. you get projectiles, you get like, you see the little, gunfire coming out of the rhino there, those little dealy bobs for all the posing and all that stuff. Looks honestly kind of pretty cool. And price point wise, in this day and age, not really that bad. In fact, I would bet if you looked at what a rhino would have cost you back when these things were first made and put it through the CPI calculator, you'd probably come out pretty close to $99.99. So there's a little bit of a temptation, I will admit it, but I probably won't, just for space reasons, but we'll see, but probably not. But that looks like a really good line. And Loyal Subjects has been doing like Strawberry Shortcake, Rainbow Bright. They got apparently Jim and the Holograms right now. It was a Walmart exclusive that came out last month, so probably all sold out, but they did do that. And I think they're working on ROM Space Knight for the future. So that's pretty cool. It looks like they put real work into these things to get them right. This is something that came up in Twitter, I think it was. I saw it on Twitter. Space Zombies from Mars. Kickstarter for 6-inch astronaut and zombie figures from the mind of Arlen Pelletier from Nameless Toy Company. So the end date for the Kickstarter is March 31st. So you can still jump in on this thing. Have a few images: Guy Garrison, military; Julia Stryker, science. So those are like the human astronauts, with different, there's like head swaps and all that kind of good stuff. Here's a Red Walker. In military gear. Here's one in science. We have a glow-in-the-dark one. So pretty cool looking stuff. It's 6-inch, so that's like what, Marvel Legends, some of the McFarlane stuff are in that general range. But, they have like a story record as well. I don't know if that's a stretch goal or just something you could buy, but there's like a story record for what this line is all about, which is really, really cool. And I'll, when I get done with the stream, I'll go back in on the description and maybe put the Kickstarter link in there. Okay. So Isom number 3, obviously in pre-order right now. I grabbed cover A today. This one's like 144 pages. It's a biggie, and it's going to wrap up the storyline that was in Isom 1 and Isom number 2. So that'll be your first Isom storyline done. So into that, I just put a video up yesterday reviewing Bloodruth number 1. Very cool book. I'm sort of like, I'm picky about what horror I like. And I know that like the Saskas, some of their movies look like way too bloody for me. So I'm going, well, they're doing a horror comic book. I don't know if it'll be my thing. Now, this is coming from a guy, though, who really loves Brian Bow's Wolf and Batsy, which is as gory and bloody as they come. It's a little bit more of a cartoony style, so maybe that makes it work for me a little easier. But I will say, Bloodruth was really good. Good story, neat integration into the Rippaverse. I got the black and white version. You could see, again, you could find my video review if you want to, but I dug it. So there's Isom number 3. And they got a lot of stuff coming out this year from Rippaverse. They're really going for it. Grey War Separation, I've already backed that one. That's one I have really been looking for. I remember I tweeted something. I think it was like a reply to a Mike Barron tweet about that subject. I think I said something like, it'd be cool if they had like a Sergeant Rock book, from that period. And he goes, oh, Chuck Dixon's working on something. Just wait. And that's what he was working on. So I'm in on that one. And that Zalen one I'm into as well. I can't wait to see what comes up with that. He looks pretty cool. Sort of a sci-fi, spacefaring thing. And this just popped up. I saw it today on Twitter. The Spawn of Venus and Other Stories from Fantagraphics, coming out August of 2025. This is a collection of sci-fi illustrated by Wallace Wood, or, Wally Wood, if you're one of his friends or just a big comic geek. That'll probably be really cool. Wally Wood did some really great work. Looks like a hardcover. I bet it is not going to be cheap, but probably really, 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 really cool and worth watching for. So that pretty much does it for new releases that I've been looking at. Thought I'd show off a couple things I got just recently. So I'm a dude who haunts the 50-cent bins, the dollar bins, in comic book shops. There's a ton of stuff from that era of, well, 70s, but mostly like 80s, late 80s, a little into the early 90s that I'm trying to recollect. The truth is, a lot of it goes cheap. So I thought I'd show off a few that I got just yesterday. There we go. Okay. So we got Avengers Spotlight. I got a couple of those. This was the follow-up to Solo Avengers. I do remember when they decided we need to have like all the Avengers under A. So that's when West Coast Avengers became Avengers West Coast. I've been grabbing a few of the Firestorms lately. Where do I want to go this way? So I got a couple more Firestorms. I'm actually really digging Firestorm in the 80s. I'd never gotten those before. It's like your classic superhero comic. Fighting bad guys, personal problems that he's working out. It's not trying to, reinvent the world, but really cool. Couple flashes. Now, I collected the Wally West Flash books back in the day, but I don't think I was even collecting by the time we got to 37. But I have been looking at getting some of those again. Got a Hawk and Dove. Really dug that version of Hawk and Dove. And I grabbed a bunch of Justice League Americas, which I'm doing obviously on Mondays. This is annual number 5, which I was missing. So that was like the one 50-center that I got that really filled a gap I was trying to fill in my collection. But I got some of the later ones too that I was kind of out of it by then, but 50-cent bin, what the heck? I got the just about complete up to issue 52. I need to grab 48 still, which I'm going to be reviewing on my channel in a little while, so I need to actually get working on that. Now, this, though, is where you go, like power armor for booster gold. I'm not so sure about that. We got Guy Gardner going nuts again, as usual. But I figured, what the heck, grab these things at 50 cents, and they might be worth it. Scarabus. This is like, what are these? Probably early 90s at this point. 94, yeah. Comics were really getting buzzing again in the early 90s, and I was kind of out of it at that point, but there were some things going on at that point that I wasn't really big into, but it's like the heart and soul of it was still there. There's a Justice League Europe that I needed. Justice League, man, it really blew up. There's a New Warriors. I've been trying to get into those. I think I had a couple back in the day. I dig New Warriors. Oh, this is another one that I needed for my collection. Night Force. This thing has been in that 50-cent bin for a while, but I didn't. Don't be too jealous of my comic collection. A lot of it's cheap crap, but cheap crap is what I like, so it works for me. It's helpful. But this one was in the 50-cent bin for a while, and I kept going, yeah, I think I got that one. I'm pretty sure I got that one. And I have a printed little piece of paper with all the stuff I'm looking for, like the main stuff I'm collecting. And Night Force wasn't on there. And finally, I'm looking through stuff, and I'm like, oh, I do need that one. Oh, if it's still there, I'm going to grab it. And it was, thankfully, still there. I think I'm the main person at that comic shop who's into the old stuff. So whenever he dumps a bunch of it into the 50-cent bin, it's a bonanza. And I actually went in there one day and spent $48 in the 50-cent bin. it was like a bonanza of late 70s, 80s, early 90s stuff that he got rid of. And I'm like, I was like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, oh my God. And I literally sit down with like a stack this big. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. Like a stack about this big of comic books, going through like, okay, which ones do I already have? My little list. This, okay, good. And I, got rid of a few, but like, I'm still working through some of those comics I've gotten. Here's a Suicide Squad. I think that's Kupperberg. And then a New Adventures of Superboy, which are really bizarre. They're like Silver Age comics from the 80s. If you've never read any of those, and if you're into that. So those are a few things picked up at the local comic shop. I am fortunate. I got 2 pretty decent local comic book shops about, 5 minutes away from me. And I also got this dude delivered. I've been collecting these Marvel Legends ones. U.S. Agent, who has kind of been, I think, a little bit got maligned in West Coast Avengers, although I've been reading through a bunch of those, and I'm like, well, maybe they weren't as mean to him as I thought, a little bit, but it felt a little like they were giving him the Guy Gardner treatment. And if you read when he was Captain America, John Walker, in the books, they had a really interesting kind of character arc for him of a guy who was a bit of an extremist. Now, okay, it's written from a bit of more of a, what we would have then called a liberal bias, rather than, now we would say left-wing bias, but still, he was a guy who was part of a sort of America First terrorist organization. Look, when you got into comic books back in the day, if you weren't super liberal, you were like, yeah, there's a bit of a bias here. If you were, you probably didn't notice a bias at all. But you're going, all right, yeah, okay, let's focus on those guys and not maybe some of the actual terrorists who are running around in the world. But still, he becomes Captain America, and you do see kind of character growth as he sees what it means symbolically to people, and and starts to understand, okay, not everything done in America's name is necessarily good, which is true, right? I mean, American government is made up of human beings, flawed. They can give in to temptation. They can do wrong things. So it's kind of cool seeing him go through that. And it seemed like when he shows up in West Coast Avengers, it's like he's forgotten all of that. And now he's kind of a bastard again. But at any rate, I still dig him. Now, of course, this was initially the costume that Captain America was wearing when he quit being Captain America again, because the government's like, you're going to take orders from us exclusively. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And I'm for that. But this is another one, though. This I got a while back, and I hadn't shown it off yet because I'd already done a review of another one of the Strike Force Alpha figures, character who is based on the bullet head dude from the old Super G.I. Joe line. And this dude is Atomic Mike, so he's based on that line too. Let me see if I can get... This one actually comes apart really easy. There's the card, a little bit of the card art. This is from White Elephant Games. So we'll just do this. We'll leave them in the little plastic, but we can get them a little bit closer up. There we go. Maybe block that light a little bit. So I wanted to get him and Bullethead to go with my old vintage Joes, because these guys are sort of from like the G.I. Joe team that preceded them. I mean, not entirely. I think the G.I. Joe like adventure team was maybe between there, but yeah, if they make any of those guys, I'd get them in that format too. Oh, thank you, dude. I appreciate that. I love cheap crap too. Just that's why. I mean, if you can learn to love stuff that is cheap, if you can learn to love just going outside and walking through nature, free goofy movies online. There is so much wonderful cheap crap in the world to entertain you and keep you happy if you'll just let it. Go to thrift stores. You can get the greatest paperbacks, like sci-fi, fantasy. I mean, not every single time. You got to haunt them a little bit, but you'd be amazed. And, or you can go to a thrift store. Dude, they got DVDs like $1, maybe $2 each. You'll sometimes see movies and go, I never really watched. Oh, you know what? It's $2. I'll just get it. Whatever. Like I couldn't have rented it that cheap back in the day from a video store. Just buy it for $2. And if I like it, I keep it. And if I don't, you know what I'll do? I'll donate it back to the thrift store and let them sell it again. Why not? Like, there's so much fun, cheap, goofy stuff out there to keep you entertained and keep you happy. I'm not saying nobody ever has a reason to be sad, because obviously life will give you those reasons. They'll give you those reasons. Life will give you those reasons an awful lot, but there is a lot of really wonderful stuff out there if you take a moment to appreciate it. And it doesn't have to be the stuff that's super, super expensive. All right. We got a little bit of time left. Go through a few movies that I watched this week just for fun. Maybe if you've seen some of these, you can chime in the chat. The Undercover Man, Glenn Ford, Nina Foch, was okay. It's a little bit wooden. It's about a guy, is it FBI or was it? I think he's FBI, who they're going after a criminal and they can't get enough evidence on him and they keep trying to trap him, find something. The turning point is a little bit obvious, but it was okay. It was okay. It's not the best thing in the world. It's a little reminiscent of like the Dragnet era of stuff, with kind of a procedural. Like I said, it can be a little stiff sometimes, but not bad. Glenn Ford's always, pretty good in anything he's in. So I said we'd talk about Gene Hackman again. When he passed, I'm like, well, put you in the mood to maybe watch some movies. And for me specifically, maybe movies I've never seen before. So I was kind of haunting YouTube. Are there any Gene Hackman movies hiding here that I can watch? I mean, and I wasn't expecting like Crimson Tide to show up. So I found a couple. This is a William Castle movie. So the guy who did House on Haunted Hill. This is more like a prison exploitation film. So it doesn't have that sort of fun William Castle touch. I shudder to think what fun novelty he would have come up with for this movie. But it's from 1969. Actually stars Jim Brown. Gene Hackman is a supporting actor in it. It's actually pretty good, but it is pretty brutal. There was the period from the very late 60s into the 70s. You get it in exploitation films, you get it in a lot of other stuff that is really brutal on topics of sex and violence, etc. There is more nudity in this film than I figured on, and it's set in a men's prison, so think about that. Yeah. Unfortunately, when I have stuff, I'm usually listening to stuff while I work, but I'd kind of peek over every once in a while and be like, whoa, okay, let's go back to the spreadsheet I was working on. But what I will say is this, for a sort of an exploitation movie, it was actually pretty smart. And it wasn't as exploitative as it could have been. It concerns a prison in Arizona. The warden is a real bastard, and he has a lifetime appointment that nobody can do anything about. So he's pretty brutal. He goes off to Hawaii with his wife for vacation. And the inmates, especially in the isolation cells, they manage to get out and start kind of a riot. Now, their plan is they just want to escape. But in order to cover them digging a tunnel out, they stage it as though it is a protest. And they get this prison psychiatrist who's kind of a liberal dude to go along with them. And they do have some very reasonable complaints, too. So Gene Hackman is character's called Red, and he's the leader of this. Now, Jim Brown's character he sort of gets drawn into it. kind of against his will, but it's also sort of just a gut reaction. When the whole thing starts, he grabs this one prison guard, probably saves his life in a way too. And the guard was this real sadistic bastard who's then like just whimpering and crying the whole time that he's being held captive. The performances are pretty good throughout but it does get really like, yeah, I mean, don't watch it with your family. If you have a lot of triggers, emotional triggers, you might not want to watch this movie, but Hackman does a really good job in it. Jim Brown's pretty good too. He usually played a sort of, a guy, a man of few words, and he's that in this too. Just if you ever seen him in Take a Hard Ride, that's a video that I did or a movie I did a review on a while back. It's a similar kind of character in some ways, but pretty good, I will say. It's probably not one that I'm ever going to watch again. And this is the other one that came up, Zandy's Bride from 1974. I mean, Hackman plays a real bastard in this. He is a frontier type settler in, I believe it was Washington State, could have been Oregon, but it was Pacific Northwest either way. Has like a cattle ranch, sends away for a male bride. No, not male as in man, but via the mail, right? Okay. And so this woman from Sweden arrives who is older than she claimed, which he doesn't like. He marries her. And like I said, this is a guy who has been raised by, frankly, a pretty brutal, terrible guy. And he's pretty brutal and terrible himself. And it's about them clashing. There are definitely some things to trigger you in this one. I did a review of it on Criticless that you could find if you kind of want to. It's got some spoilers in it. There's every reason for you to really hate this dude. But Gene Hackman kind of pulls it off. And it has kind of a nice ending. But I think it's a kind of a character that in a modern context, people just say, screw that guy, write him off, he can go to hell. No interest in this dude at all. And it would be, frankly, understandable too. But it is about a guy kind of learning a little bit of stuff along the way. And he is the guy who needs to change in the movie. It's really not her. It's not like two people coming together, in between. It's him coming over to her after he does a lot of stupid, destructive crap. But it was good, and he was very good in it. And the fact that he could play a character like that and kind of make that work, I think shows a lot about his ability to act and his natural charisma. As people have pointed out, he was not like a handsome leading man type, in the movies. But handsome and charisma are two different things. There are a lot of actors and actresses who are extremely good looking who really don't have that much charisma. And they don't tend to go that far in Hollywood. Really. They'll maybe get a few movies because, I'm thinking of actresses in particular. Guys will be like, oh my God, check her out. But it kind of wears thin after a while. Once you've seen a particular beautiful person, after a while, the beauty, they need the charisma to keep it going. Like Marilyn Monroe was not just a pretty face. She had an innate charisma that really drew you to her performances. Rita Hayworth is another one. Cary Grant, but then you get guys like Jimmy Stewart who, you're probably not going, oh, women weren't probably thinking, oh, that guy's gorgeous, but Jimmy Stewart had that charisma that really draws you in. Hackman was the same way. I've heard he was tough to work with, but at the same time, he got a lot of work. And if you're not that good and you're a pain in the ass to work with, you don't get a lot of work because it's just not worth the trouble. With this guy, it was worth the trouble. The warden is always a bastard in those films. They generally are. One of my favorite characters, and he's not a warden, but if you've ever seen So I Married an Axe Murderer, is the character of the police captain, Alan Arkin. And you have Mike Myers' best friend is the cop, who's all into 70s cop stuff. And he wants a captain who's yelling at him and screaming at him. And he says, he gets this very sensitive captain who, well, I mean, we should maybe talk about that. And it turns the whole thing over, and it's really, really, really well done. But yeah, you generally don't get the really nice warden in these things. Oh, Warden Crichton, the old Batman TV show. You did get him. He was a rare example of a warden who was, in fact, maybe a little bit too nice. I like that even Batman once in a while, who's very much in favor of these modern prison reforms, every once in a while it's like, Warden, maybe this one goes a little bit too far. Maybe, do you think so, Batman? Maybe just a little bit too much. So this one I caught yesterday. No More Orchids, Carol Lombard, and Lyle Talbot, who, I mean, this dude worked like a maniac. He was in Ed Wood movies. He was on Ozzie and Harriet. Lyle Talbot worked until he dropped. This is from 1932. So he's kind of playing the leading man. And it's sort of, it's a little bit cheesy, to be completely honest, with an ending that is both tragic and a little bit cheesy. But Carol Lombard is really good in it. Walter Connolly, who plays her father, is really good in it. And Louise Closser Hale, who plays her grandmother, is really good in it. There are a lot of lines that really made me laugh. They were just funny. And Talbot's pretty decent. He's good in it. But I mean, he's not playing a character who gets a lot of funny lines or anything. They did a good job with it. It gets a little, I don't know. There are some wonderful scenes between her and her father and between her and her grandmother that are just really, really nice, like family love and how much these people care about each other. Does sort of lead to an ending that is tragic, but admittedly kind of melodramatic, but pretty darn good movie. I enjoyed it. Carol Lombard's always pretty good in anything. And this I just watched today, The Crime of the Century. Jean Herschel plays this psychiatrist who uses hypnotism to help people overcome their criminal instincts. And his wife is kind of money hungry. And she almost convinces him to commit a murder to steal a bunch of money. But he balks at it at the last minute and brings the police into it. And it's a little bit stiff. It's a decent murder mystery, but it's a little stiff, a little bit wooden. Stu Irwin is in it. And this is a dude who actually had a pretty big career in movies and had a big hit TV show in the early 50s. And then kind of disappears. And he plays this police reporter who's sort of in the detective role. And he's pretty decent in it. And the movie kind of warms up over time. And there are some funny lines from him. There's a funny bit with this German couple who are like the servants of of Jean Herschel's character, like the butler and the cook. Funny scene with those two. Frances D is pretty good in it as this guy's daughter who's defending him and sort of kind of falling in love with Stu Irwin's character. I think maybe he falls more in love with her than the other way around, but still not bad. What I did like though, oh yeah, there's a dude and an actor in it named Dave Landau. I thought that was funny. If you've ever seen The Comedian, he's pretty darn good. But what I liked is, and this almost reminded me of speaking of William Castle thing. At a certain point, they stop the movie. They have this guy kind of in front of a curtain saying, the problem with mystery movies is that you don't have time to really solve the crime yourself. When you're reading a book, you can put it down and think about things. In plays, there are, pauses between scenes. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause the movie for 1 minute so you can think about it and try to figure out who the killer is. And they literally have this grandfather clock, and they have the time, 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, 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 right? Going up to 60. And you're seeing images of the different characters who could be suspects, just like still images of their faces as the clock goes. And then when it's over, they get back into the story, and you get kind of the last act where you actually end up getting ultimately the solution to the crime. But that was kind of clever. It was kind of cool. I dug that. And I did not solve the crime, although I was close. I was on the right track, but I went the wrong direction slightly on that track. Any rate. So Crime of the Century, not bad. Worth a look. It's a decent little murder mystery if you have time. I think it's an hour, 10 minutes long, so it's not a real long thing. All right, man. I think that's going to wrap up the live stream today from very windy Las Vegas, Nevada. Scoot over a little bit so I can block some of that light. I know, man, this light is a killer at the moment. We're heading into summer, so it's going to be even crazier. So anyhow, thanks anybody and everybody who jumped onto the stream. Thank you, Chuck, for chiming in the chat. Lady Wendelin, who, no reason to hide it, that's my wife, but thank you for supporting me in this bizarre endeavor of mine to become a YouTube star. I'm still aiming for 1 million followers. I'm a little bit short right now, but you know what? I got 552 subscribers on this channel, and that is more than I ever thought I'd get ever. Honestly, I joke about wanting to get to 1 million because, hey, I'd love to retire and just goof around online for a living. Not probably going to happen, but that's fine. I've had a fun time just getting out there, chatting with people, talking about stuff that I enjoy, that hopefully you enjoy. So thanks for stopping by to the live stream. Hopefully I'll see you on another one. I'll probably do another one next Sunday. We'll see what comes up. If it's a real slow week, maybe I'll do it a couple weeks from now. But either way, we'll have some videos on their way this week. I believe, well, Monday, tomorrow for sure, is Justice League. I think it's number 9. Yeah, it might take a little more time to get to 1 million. Look, 5 years, if I can't get to 1 million subscribers in 5 years, what am I doing wrong? Maybe I'm talking about movies like that star Stu Irwin instead of reviewing the biggest movies out there right now and crapping all over them. That seems to be also Nasty Politics seems to be a really good way to get a lot of followers quick. But I want this to be a fun place and a positive place. So this week, Monday, Justice League, I think it's number 9. We're doing that every Monday this year up till number 52. And then next year, maybe going to do Excalibur. We'll see. Haven't decided what comic I want to do. It'll be a Marvel comic, probably. Wednesday, I think I'm doing a review of City Heat, a movie that starred Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds, 2 biggest action stars in the world at the time. And it flopped spectacularly. We're going to talk about why, frankly, I kind of like it, but maybe some of the reasons that it didn't catch on as well as it should have. And then I think Saturday, what is the Saturday? Was it a toy that I was going to go over? I can't remember. I'm going to put a thing out on my my X account here and on YouTube. That'll be what's coming up this week. So you'll see it then. But at any rate, thanks for stopping by, everybody. I really appreciate it. In about an hour, I'll publish this thing, so it'll stay up. If you had to dip in or dip out, it'll still be around for you to watch. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there, and hopefully I'll see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.